I'm Amelia Mosley and you're watching BTN. Thanks for hanging out with us again. Let's see what's coming up on today's show. We find out how climate change is changing Aussie childhood. Learn why some expensive skincare products might be doing you harm. And discover the secrets behind the songs of Wales. But first today, to university. I know it's probably a few years off for most of you, but when school's over, you might be thinking of going to uni or TAFE. And a report that was released last week has recommended some changes to make it easier for young Aussies to access higher education. Here's Michelle.
I want to be an architect when I grow up.
I want to be an artist.
I want to be a dermatologist.
I want to be a doctor.
I want to be a racing driver.
I want to be a geologist.
Depending on what you're interested in, university could become a pretty important part of life after school.
In fact, it has been for about 50% of Australians.
The idea of a place where adults can keep learning has been around for hundreds of years. The first true university opened way back in 1088. It was the University of Bologna in Italy. And it's still going today, and so are Oxford and Cambridge in England, which opened not too long after that. Fast forward to the 19th century, and places of higher education were appearing in Australia. The first were technical colleges where people could learn trades. The Sydney Technical College opened in 1835 and would later become known as TAFE. In 1850, the University of Sydney opened its doors. At the time, you could only study science, maths, politics, French or German, so not quite as much choice as we have today.
By the time the First World War broke out, every state had its own uni, and women were becoming a common sight on campus.
After World War II, there was a big university boom around Australia as the economy grew and more industries called for people with training. Unis started to become really important places of research as well as education, and the government invested more money into them.
For a time in Australia, university was actually free, which encouraged a lot of people to join.
Now Australia has 41 universities, and more than 1.4 million people go to them. TAFE is also in every state and territory, and has more than 500,000 students. TAFEs and most unis are owned by the government. They're funded partly by tax and partly by fees, which can vary a lot from free to tens of thousands of dollars. Aussie students can apply for HELP, which stands for the Higher Education Loan Program, which lets you pay off your fees when you start work. But for a lot of people, paying to go to uni is pretty tough. And that's something that's been highlighted in this report. It's the biggest review that's been done into Aussie universities in more than a decade.
But I think what it really reveals is that higher education in Australia has been chronically underfunded now for decades.
The report highlighted just how important university and TAFE is, both for training and for research, and says if we want Australian society to succeed in the future, we need to invest in higher education and encourage more kids to keep studying after school.
In the decades ahead, we need 80% of our workforce, not just to have finished school, but to have gone to uni or to TAFE.
To do that, the report says there needs to be more financial support for people who have to move to the city for uni, and more funding so courses are cheaper and students end up with less debt.
We've got to smash down an invisible barrier that stops a lot of kids from poor families and our outer suburbs and the regions from getting a crack at university in the first place.
So perhaps by the time you're ready, it will be easier to keep learning after school.
If there's more university people, there's more people to help out with things that need to have university training, such as doctors, law.
I think it's way important for kids to go to university
So they can learn about what they want to be when they grow up.
Do you know the name of the Aussie spy organisation that this man is in charge of? Is it MI5, ASIO or the CIA? It's ASIO, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation. Last week, its Director General Mike Burgess caused a stir when he revealed a former politician had been recruited by foreign spies.
This politician sold out their country, party, former colleagues to advance the interests of a foreign regime.
He didn't reveal who the former politician was, but it's made a lot of people angry. Last week, some people celebrated the rarest birthday that anyone can have. What date is that? It's February 29th. It's rare because we only get it once every 4 years on a leap year.
21 today and I haven't caught a cray.
And can you name the famous colourful parade which was held in Sydney on the weekend? It's the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. It's one of the biggest LGBTQI+ pride events in the world, and it's been going since 1978.
It's a special place walking down here. It's amazing.
If you've ever been through a natural disaster, you'll know it can have a huge impact on your life. And now a new report by UNICEF has looked at exactly how Aussie kids can be affected by extreme weather events and what that's costing the country in the long run. Here's Thomas.
All this water's coming in from the dam, which is normally never full, but it's really full right now.
When smoke was flooding our property, we knew it was time to go.
It was raining a lot and it flooded, and there was a lot of wind.
The river was really high and really close to land. And it rained like every day.
It was just me and my mum there, and yeah, we were pretty scared because I'd never seen wind that strong in my life before.
Whether it's a flood, bushfire, cyclone or a drought, there are lots of Aussie kids who know what it's like to live through a disaster. In fact, according to a new report, 1.4 million Australian children and young people experience extreme weather each year. That's 1 in 6 kids. And researchers say that because of climate change, that number is on the rise.
Yesterday marked 2 years since we lived through a major flood. Colossal amounts of rain just poured down on us for days, and then the water rose right up in the middle of the night and just took over our town.
The day of the bushfire was really, really smoky. You couldn't see anything at all, and the sun was completely blocked out for weeks on end.
Even though I'm only 12, I've already been through 2 natural disasters. So I'm worried that when I grow older, I'll have to deal with more and more natural disasters.
We know now that with climate change, these events are going to be more frequent, they're going to be more severe, they're going to be a bigger part of our lives.
Nishad Rego is from UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and he says natural disasters can have a lasting impact on kids.
My house, we don't think we're going to be able to move in there again. It's really unstable.
Kids can suffer from mental health problems like anxiety and stress.
Even today, people still don't have houses, and people might still have houses, but they still have that trauma. It's a pretty life-changing event.
And disasters can have a big impact on their education.
A school might be damaged, the roads leading to a school might be damaged, and if they miss out on enough school, or if their school is destroyed for a period of time, they are less likely to finish year 12. And this has all kinds of consequences for them later in life.
UNICEF says this sort of thing isn't just bad for kids, it's also bad for the economy.
We know through this report that disasters are very expensive and that they cost Australia roughly $3 billion a year on average, and up to $6.2 billion in a year where there are many disasters.
Which is why UNICEF is calling on the government to invest more into helping young people who have been affected by climate disasters.
So, for example, when a disaster strikes, we need safe play areas, learning areas, areas for children to engage with each other and just relax in the context of an emergency.
They also want young people to have more of a say in government policy.
Children and young people are experts in their own lives. They have lots to say, and they have good things to say.
They say we can learn a lot from young people's experiences and how they got through some of the tough times.
I know this isn't going to be the last natural disaster that my community is going to witness, so I feel like people need to have better knowledge on how to prepare.
Being aware of those changes will obviously make sure that when you do get something like a fire warning or an evacuation warning, you already have all the equipment and everything you need to be prepared for that.
Desmoor's very resilient, so the whole community got in and rescued people off of their roofs and tinnies. And even after the flood, with all the mess that was about, everyone helped each other to clean it all up.
Now to a trend that's got some experts worried. They say a lot of young people are watching so-called skinfluencers on social media, and that's encouraging them to buy expensive beauty products that might actually be doing them more harm than good. Kale looked into it.
Grace was 10 when she first became obsessed with skincare.
I just saw some people online and I was interested and wanted to try it out. I know I've spent a lot of moisturisers and skincare, like $90 for maybe one thing.
There's been a huge rise in kids, mostly girls, getting into the world of beauty products well before their teens. And Grace says there's a big reason why.
Well, there's a lot of influencers that just promote skincare and that's very popular, and then they start trying it out and see how they like it, yeah.
We're gonna do my full makeup with only pink packaging.
We only have 5 minutes to get ready.
This is a 24 karat gold face serum. It's $220, so it's expensive.
The problem is sometimes these products can do more harm than good if they're not the right product or not used properly.
Once I bought this thing and burned my skin, my face went red, and I got all these little bumps all over my face the next day, and I was crying at one stage because it was so painful.
The problem with these is that they will increase your skin's sensitivity to the sun. So in other words, you'll go into the sun and you'll get burnt more easily.
Dr. Michelle Wong is a chemist who debunks a lot of skincare myths via her online persona Lab Muffin Beauty Science.
That is actually unscientific.
She says kids' skin is very different to adults.
So our skin really kind of reaches its peak in terms of things like collagen, which is one of the proteins in your skin that keeps it smooth and bouncy, about your mid-20s. So if you are, say, younger than that, significantly younger than that, like 10, then there's just no real need for these sorts of products, and they can actually cause damage to your skin.
The problem is some of these products can contain chemicals not suited to young skin, things like glycolic and lactic acid and retinoids. These chemicals can make our skin more sensitive to the sun, as well as irritate and break down our skin barrier.
If you're getting acne, then that's probably around the time when you can start getting benefits from it. But if you're younger, then there's no real point to it. At best, it's a waste of money. At worst, it could potentially make your skin really sensitive. Back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, when people were looking at these sort of skincare messages, when they were looking at anti-aging skincare ads, a lot of the time that was on other places like on TV. And it would be in the middle of, say, a TV show that was aimed at older people. But these days, because everything is so online, then a lot of this sort of age targeting isn't quite right.
According to Dr. Wong, beauty filters and filters that show what you look like when you're older have created an obsession with aging.
You kind of just lose sense of what real skin actually looks like and how closely anyone is actually looking at your skin.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to look after your skin, and having a simple routine that's suited to you can be good.
I think it's okay for kids to start looking after their skin, especially in Australia. So one of the things that is really important is sunscreen. If your skin is dry, then oils and hydrating ingredients are both good. If your skin is on the oilier side, you want to look for a lighter formula that has a lot of hydration.
Grace, who's now 13, says she's a bit more careful with the products she uses.
So I try to stick to more natural skincare now. All these acids and things are just damaging my skin, and all the money I'm spending not very good. I try to use as little as I can, just things I think I should be using.
Now to a whale of a mystery that might have just been solved by researchers. For the first time, they've managed to get an idea of how baleen whales produce the songs that have fascinated sailors and scientists for centuries. Here's Ren.
Humpbacks sing day and night, about 50 feet below the surface.
All right, class, now let's see how much you've learned. Now, Yep, the language of whales is something that's fascinated human beings for centuries. Many years ago, sailors would hear these mysterious whoops and rumbles and think they were being made by ghosts. But eventually, we figured out it was whales using sound to navigate the vast open ocean and find the loves of their life. Yes, very good. Lovely. Okay, now let's hear from an expert.
That's whale for hello. I'm Dr. Vanessa Perotta and I'm a whale scientist. I have heard whales make a lot of different sounds, but these are some of my favourites. So this is the disco whale. It sounds a bit like this. And then there was one whale that I heard that was sounding like this.
And some whales, like the male humpback, even sing songs with distinct patterns, which can change from year to year.
So they will sing songs kind of like the coolest tune of the year, which is similar to the hottest 100, which means that they might be singing a song this year, which is then not cool next year, if you know what I mean. But what's really interesting, because sound can travel, the top 100 song that happened in Australian waters this year could become the hottest 100 next year in another whale population.
But while humans have been studying whale songs for years and years, we've never fully understood how they actually sing. Until now. By studying the voice boxes of whales that had died naturally, scientists have been able to paint a clearer picture of how they make those amazing noises. And this is what they found. Unlike humans, baleen whales don't have vocal cords. Instead, they have a U-shaped tissue they push a huge amount of air through that vibrates this big cushion of fat and muscle, which produces sound. Baleen whales can repeat this process over and over again using the same breath of air.
And they can sing for a long time, in the case of a humpback whale, up to 20 minutes or so.
You hear that, guys? Stamina. All right, let's see how long we can hold this, okay? But as loud as whales are, they can still be interrupted by us.
Now that we know that whales make sound to talk to each other across long distances, we need to be careful as humans because we also produce sound in the ocean, like the sound of shipping noises. We also might have underwater construction, sonar. What we need to be mindful of is to make sure that we don't make too much noise so we reduce the opportunity for whales to talk to each other.
While we know a lot more about whale songs, there's still a lot more to learn, including what these sounds actually mean.
As humans, we don't yet 100% understand what whales are trying to say.
So what? You don't actually know how to speak whale?
Well, not really, but it's been fun, hasn't it? Can I get a whoop whoop? Whoop whoop?
What is a baleen whale? Is it a whale with teeth, a whale without teeth, or a whale found only in Antarctica? It's a whale without teeth. Instead, they have brush-like fibres in their mouth, which they use as a kind of sieve to collect the plankton that they eat.
The Matildas are going to the Olympics. Yep, the Tillies booked their giant novelty-sized ticket to Paris last week after winning their second qualifying match against Uzbekistan. Speaking of overseas trips, the NRL season kicked off this weekend in Las Vegas. It's the first time premiership games have ever been played on US soil in an effort to crack the US market, and it was pretty successful. more than 40,000 people packed Allegiant Stadium to watch the Sydney Roosters beat the Brisbane Broncos 20-10. And the Manly Sea Eagles smashed the South Sydney Rabbitohs 36-24. And the Aussies have won their first test against New Zealand in the Trans-Tasman Series. Nathan Lyon and Cameron Green were absolute superstars, leading the team to a 172-run victory.
And Australia have won it quite convincingly in the end.
The teams will meet again on Friday for the final test of the series.
And finally today, March is Women's History Month. So we're going to be bringing you the stories of some famous and influential Aussie women over the next few episodes with the help of our rookie reporters. This week, we'll find out about the remarkable life and work of Elizabeth Kenny. Take a look.
Meet Sister Elizabeth Kenny. Elizabeth was born in 1880 in Wallrialda in country New South Wales. She loved being outside, riding her horse and exploring, and wasn't so interested in behaving the way girls were expected to behave at the time. When she was 17, she was out on a ride, fell off her horse and broke her arm, and this started her interest in the human body. While she was recovering from her injury, Elizabeth passed the time by reading her doctor's medical books and learning the names of every bone in the body. When she got home, she kept studying and even built a model skeleton out of stuff she collected. Eventually, she was ready to use her knowledge to help others and became a bush nurse, riding her horse to patients' houses for home visits. She did everything from delivering babies to bandaging broken bones. And she often saw cases of polio. Polio doesn't exist in Australia anymore thanks to vaccines, but for a long time it was really common, especially in children. It causes terrible muscle pains and spasms and breathing problems. And doctors used to treat it by putting patients' limbs in casts and not letting them move. But Elizabeth knew from treating other patients that the best thing for aches was often hot cloths, exercise and lots of stretching, or what we now know as physiotherapy. So she tried it on polio patients and it worked! Of the 20 children who caught polio in her area, the 6 she treated completely recovered. She wanted to share her method, which became known as the Kenny method, with doctors. But because she was a woman, most of them didn't take her seriously. In 1932, there was a big polio epidemic across Australia. Word started to spread about the Kenny method. Within 4 years, 4 Kenny clinics were open, treating hundreds of patients. And then Elizabeth went to the US, where there was also a polio outbreak. Doctors over there were way more supportive of her method. In 1942, the Sister Kenny Institute opened to train therapists. And in 1952, she was voted the most admired woman in the US. She was a bit of a celebrity over there, and a Hollywood movie was even made about her life.
This is going to feel hot, but it won't burn you.
Today, the Kenny method is still used in countries where people get polio. And it's all thanks to Sister Elizabeth Kenny for thinking outside the box, whether people liked it or not. After all, her motto was, "It's better to be a lion for a day than a sheep all your life."
Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the show and maybe learned a thing or two. We'll be back with more next week, of course. And in the meantime, you can check out Newsbreak right here in the studio every weekday. Or if you're in high school, there's BTN High to keep you up to date. Have the best week, and I'll see you soon.